In this video, we're going to take a look at finding the surface area and the volume of a sphere. So to find the surface area of the sphere, we're given a formula. Surface area equals 4 times pi times r squared. So for this formula, you have to have the radius of your sphere. How do you find the radius? Well, you know, a sphere is just a ball. So if you can find the center of your ball, and then draw a line to any point on your ball or sphere. All of these are your radii. Okay, your radii will be consistent anywhere from the very center of the ball to the outside of the ball. So you need a radius in order to find the surface area of a sphere. So what do you need for the volume? Well, the equation for the volume of a sphere is very similar to that of the surface area. It's 4/3 pi r cubed. Okay, so because these formulas are really close, you'll need to make sure that you keep them separate in your mind and use the correct one. So for volume, we also need the radius. So again, just find the center of your sphere, the ball, and draw a straight line to an outer edge, an outer side, and that is your radius. Okay, so let's work through a couple of problems. All right, this is very similar to problem number 1A on your worksheet. It says find the surface area and the volume of this ball, and this is a beach ball. So for both formulas, I need the radius, but they didn't give me the radius. They gave me the diameter. So I need to divide this in half to find the radius. Okay, so what is the formula for surface area? Well, my surface area is 4 pi r squared. Let me go back and check that. 4 pi r squared, yep. And I'm just going to go ahead and plug in the information I know. My radius is 19/2, so I have 4 pi 19/2, and I need to square that. So I get 4 pi 19 squared is 361/4. And now my 4's reduce out really nicely. So I get 361 pi inches surface areas in squared dimensions. And that would be my answer. So now my formula for volume is 4/3 pi, but now I'm going to cube my radius, which tells me I'm going to need my calculator because I don't know what 19 cubed is. So I get 4/3 pi, and now I have 19/2 cubed. So I'm going to turn my calculator on, and I'm going to cube 19. And remember, if you don't have a cube on your calculator, what can you do? You can always multiply 19 3 times. So I have 4 pi over 3 times, when I cube 19, I get 6,859. And when I cube 2, I get 8. And this is what's really nice. The 4 and the 8 reduce. And then let's see, if I add up my digits, I get 14, 19, 28. It's not divisible by 3, so I'm not going to be able to reduce that. So I get 6,859 pi. 3 times 2 is 6. And then my dimensions are in inches, and volume is cubed dimensions. All right, so let's go ahead and move on to the next one. Here they want us to find the surface area and the volume of the sphere. Well, surface area is 4 pi r squared, and they were nice enough to give us the radius. Okay, so all I have to do is plug it in. So 4 pi r, when I plug in 5 for my radius and square it, I get 4 pi times 25, and 4 times 25 is 100 pi. My units are centimeters, and area is always squared units. And then my volume formula is 4/3 pi r cubed. So I get 4/3 pi. Now I have to cube my radius. So I get 4/3 pi times 125. All right, so 3 does not go into 125, so I need to multiply 125 times 4. If you can't do that or you don't want to, go ahead and break your calculator out. But 4 times 125 is 500 pi divided by 3. I know 3 doesn't go into 500 because when I add up the 5, the 0, and the 0, I get 5. 5 is not divisible by 3. So my dimensions were in centimeters, and for volume, they are cubed. So that's my answer. Okay, and then for 1C, here's a problem that's very similar. Here in this problem, they're not giving you the radius. So we need to calculate the radius. They drew a line in here for your diameter. So 12 centimeters is your diameter, so your radius is going to be half of that. So when I do the surface area, my surface area equals 4 pi r squared. So I get 4 pi 6 squared, which is 4 pi times 36. And I know that 4 times 36 is 144 pi. My dimensions are in centimeters, and surface area is always squared. The formula for volume is 4/3 pi r cubed. So when I plug that in, I get 4/3 pi 6 cubed. I know that 6 cubed, we did that a while ago, is 216. And when I add these numbers up, 2 and 1 is 3 and 6 is 9. So 3 goes into 9, so I can reduce the 3 and the 216. 3 goes into 216, let's see, 72 times. So now I just multiply 72 times 4 to get 288 pi. And my dimensions are centimeters, and for volume they need to be cubed. All right, so the next one does not have a whole sphere. It has half of a sphere, which we call a hemisphere, okay? So if you take the Earth and divide it in half along the equator, you have a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere. Okay, so this hemisphere, let's see, it says find the surface area and the volume. Okay, so the surface area, we're not going to include the base, right? We do have a base here. Normally a sphere, we don't have a base, but here we have a base, and we're not going to include it in our calculations. So our surface area formula is still 4 pi r squared, but since this is only half a sphere, we have to multiply it by a half. And when we do that, you notice that the 4 and the 2 reduce. So my surface area formula is 2 pi r squared. So they didn't give us r, they gave us the diameter, so I know that I half the diameter to find my radius. So I'm going to use 10 for my radius. So when I square 10, I get 2 pi times 100, and that leaves me with 200 pi, and my units are in meters, and so it's squared. For the volume, I know my volume is 4/3 pi r cubed, but this is only half a sphere, so I have to multiply this by a half. And now my 4 and my 2 reduce out, so I get 2 pi r cubed over 3. So now I'm just going to go ahead and plug in my radius of 10, and I have to cube it this time. So when I cube 10, I get 1,000. And when I multiply by 2, I get 2,000 pi over 3. And I know this doesn't reduce because 2 plus 0 plus 0 plus 0 is 2, and 2 is not divisible by 3. So I'm going to leave it just like this. All right, for my next two problems, you are going to have to break out a calculator. It says, given the volume, find the surface area of the sphere, round to the nearest whole number. Okay, so I know that my surface area formula is 4 pi r squared, and I need a radius. So I am going to have to solve for my radius in my volume formula. Okay, so I'm just going to fill in what I know for volume. I know that my V is 900, so I'm going to solve for my radius in this formula. So I'm going to multiply both sides by 3 to get 2,700 equals 4 pi r cubed. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 4 pi. Okay, so r cubed equals 2,700 over 4 pi. I want you to plug that in your calculator. Okay, 2,700 divided by 4. Okay, make sure you put parentheses around the denominator when you do that, or else you'll get the wrong answer. Okay, so when you plug that in your calculator, you should get approximately 214.8591732. So now you have to take the cube root. Some of your calculators may not have a cube root symbol. Okay, so what I would do next is, if you have the cube root, right, if you have an x cubed button, your second function should be the cube root. But some of our calculators do not have an x cubed, but they do have what I call a caret button. So if you have a caret button, hit your caret button and put in parentheses 1/3, because a cube root equals an exponent of 1/3. We learned that in Algebra 1. Okay, so I'm going to hit my caret button and put in a 1/3. 1 divided by 3. Make sure you put that in parentheses. Okay, and I get for my radius, I get a radius, and I'm going to use 3 decimal places, 5.989. So now all I really have to do is plug that into my formula. So my surface area is going to equal 4 pi times 5.989 squared. So when I square 5.989, and then I'm going to multiply that by 4 and pi, I get a surface area that is approximately equal to, and I'm going to round it to the nearest whole number, so I need 1 decimal place. So this is going to round to 451, and it's going to be inches squared because surface area is squared. Okay, we're going to do the same thing here. I know my volume equals 4/3 pi r cubed. I'm going to plug in 140 for my volume. And when I multiply by 3, I get 420 r cubed. And I'm going to divide everything by 4 pi and plug it in my calculator to find my radius. Okay, 420 divided by, in parentheses, 4 times pi. I get approximately 33.423. So my radius is going to be let's see, 33.4 423 raised to the 1 divided by 3 power 3.22. And now